Hey guys, yeah, this is episode 10 of the Rugby Recap. You have myself, of course, and the Kiwi lads. First of all, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, mate. International rugby, back to back to back. I'm probably jet lagged, but it was worth it. There were a lot of great games taking place over the weekend, and the fun doesn't stop because next weekend we've got more international fixtures, including Springboks versus All Blacks at Twickenham.
Excited.
It's a bit of a fun game, isn't it, for an opening round almost of the Rugby World Cup? Just a
Yeah.
prelude of what we're going to get to see 1 week later. Can't wait.
No, it should be good. Should be good. Really excited for that one, of course. But yeah, no, really, we'll just cover really more of a review of the games that happened this week. We did have three big games, really, with the likes of, Wales, Box. We had the likes of Ireland, England, as well as France versus Fiji. Well, first off with the Wales Box game, what do you think about the results? I mean, the Box were pretty convincing, I'd have to say, with that. I mean, it was, they go in the 50s. I mean, to be honest, like as a Bok fan, you don't see it often, guys. So you have to be kind of, have to applaud it when you see that kind of result from a Bok perspective. But yeah, what do you think about the game?
I thought it was a bit of a weird one to start off with
Mm.
because South Africa, looking at the scoreboard, it looks like, okay, they dominated that whole performance, but they did have little patches where it still looked concerning. And I think the thing that will be promising for them is that even with those patches, they were still able to put on the half century.
Yeah.
The penalties conceded were probably a little bit of a concern for the Springboks early on. I think I saw at one point it was 5 penalties against them, two against Wales. Wales just weren't able to fire in this game, unfortunately, only scoring the one try. Yes, it wouldn't have helped losing Liam Williams, Dan Bigger, and Alex Cuthbert all before the game was going to be taking place, but I have to say there were a few of those younger players who stepped up a bit. And Jesse Creel, number 13, I feel like he has proved a lot of people
Yeah.
wrong now. He managed to have a great performance there for the Box. See Khaleesi back from injury, getting the assist of that first try on Malcolm Murdoch, so that gave him that early confidence that he would have been needing, only giving them the half game, slowly bring him back in. But overall, I think the Springboks, I mentioned about it on the stream as well, it's the confidence builder, the big score that they needed to get a little bit closer to this Rugby World Cup and feel like they are ready for this World Cup because it's just around the corner. It
Yeah.
was, I don't know, 3 months ago or so that we were like, oh, it's ages. We've got plenty of time. Preparations,
Read the book,
don't
just
need to do them yet. But now it's like it's almost here. They've got the All Blacks next week, which I think they'll go with a bit of a new look side as well, just to make sure everyone's still fresh and ready to rumble for that first game where they will be playing Scotland, which I've had a lot of people talking about. That's an intriguing fixture. What about yourself? What do you think of that South Africa performance? I'm sure there were players who stood up, in your opinion.
I look, I think it's the same as you. I actually thought Jesse Clear was probably my man of the match for sure for what I saw in that game. I mean, you have to remember, guys, it was a big performance really for him in particular because you don't have Alexa Bakanyam really available for this Rugby World Cup anymore due to his injuries. So you're kind of looking at like who's the next player to really step up and take that spot going into this Rugby World Cup, and he'll be a starter. And I think Jesse Clear again, he'll have to prove it again against the All Blacks in Twickenham if they do start with him again. But it's a very good bench, platform to build off, essentially a good foundation to see that he has the capability of impacting a game from that 13 position, and he works very well with Jimmy Dunn there as well. So I think that chemistry is looking good. It's looking good. I'm kind of excited about it, but again, we can't get really too hesitant because just too maybe hesitant is the wrong word. It's really just more we can't get too kind of just happy about the situation at the moment. We have to kind of just take steps towards this and find out if these two can work in terms of a big game situation like we will have next week against the All Blacks. But yeah, other than that, I thought the Boks are just very impressive overall. I mean, I guess like Khaleesi, yeah, like you said, Khaleesi, just good to see him back in the squad. I thought Kaden Moody thought did pretty well actually in terms of I think he had like a try. Well, I think he had two tries actually in the game. One was actually, I mean, from what I saw, one was taking a very long time to see if it can actually award the try or not. But it was like I think it was like Dyer, right, who
Yeah,
slapped the
that
ball
was
and
that was a
it was
really
like
weird one,
it was
wasn't
very
it? Because
yeah.
the way that they were describing it, they were like, so he's knocked the ball on and then Dyer slapped it into touch. And I was sitting there when they awarded the try going, wait, if he's knocked it on
That's
and
what I
then
was
it's been
thinking.
slapped, like
Exactly. That's
they were
what I was
working on
thinking
the
as well.
theory for the penalty try as well that he was going to regather it from knocking it on. It was a weird scenario, but I think that overall for that game, discipline-wise, like Wales, to be honest, I don't think they were that bad. It's just they didn't get the ball enough in those breakdowns when you're having those boys likes of Malcolm Murray, Stephen Kitsoff. Scrums were a problem. I think that we're going to see that for all sides when they face the Springboks.
Yeah.
And the fact that Malcolm Marks got the first try, but it wasn't actually off a rolling maul, I think was quite a pleasant surprise, just because everyone thought, get it in the corner and give it a bit of a shove. But now, overall, good performance for the Boks. Who do you think was a player that didn't quite step up to the task today in terms of their lineup? And I'm going to make it so you can't say Marnie Lebok, because we know his kicking wasn't great. Everyone knows that. So overall, I think outside of kicking, he's good. But that kicking, people go, it's him who's the problem. But outside of Marnie Lebok, who you got as the guy who didn't quite live up to expectations?
Yeah, I mean, look, before getting to the guy, I do want to say Marnie Lebok did actually have in my opinion, he actually had a good game, in terms of what he was able to do in terms of back line. I mean, that pass, to like Williamson at the end was like unbelievable. Like skipped past a player or two, and that's what you kind of expect from a fly off, to see that pass, and he has the capability of doing that. So that's a good thing for the Boks. But yeah, you are right in terms of the kicking fronts. Yes, that's obviously one area which he has to really grow on essentially over time, or else it's going to get pretty worrying as a Bok fan going into the Rugby World Cup. If you have those pressure kicks, it's going to be interesting. But I guess in terms of player who didn't step up, I mean, it's really hard to say that because, like, I'll be honest, this is a pretty convincing result. I mean, is there one player I can think of right off the top? I mean, Cheslin Kobe I thought was pretty good, sidestepping his way through most people. I mean, who was the actually? You know what? Actually, who was the loose forward pack for this game? Because that's
for this one, they had Khaleesi, Peter Steftotoy, and Jesper Visa.
So I think that's who. Maybe this is like the obvious scapegoat, because it's maybe a bad way of saying this, because in my opinion, guys, there really was no player I thought really kind of just had a bad game. But I think Khaleesi had a great game coming, back from injury. Peter Steftotoy, got a try of his own, I believe. And, he pretty impressive performance, I'd say, from his part. Even had that audacious run to even, like, set up, it was Jesse Cleal, I believe, for a second try. So he had a pretty good game. But I guess if you had to say someone, I'd probably go Jesper Visa. But again, he wasn't that bad at all. It's just that it's one of those where neither Jesper Visa, it's just really Jesper Visa hasn't really certified himself as the 8 yet. Like, and that's a worrying thing, by the way, because when you look at the All Blacks, like, they now know their loose forward trio. It's 100% confirmed. I mean, again, there's a bit of a doubt now with Vizel, I saw. So we'll see what happens on that front. But again, still, they have a good, they know what's going to happen in terms of that loose forward trio. The Boks, like, I'll be honest, that's the only position left. I'm like, okay, I'm still a bit hesitant. Like, do I go with Jesper Visa or do I go with Dwayne Vermeulen? But you also have to think, okay, who's better off the bench? And I can't even answer that, because both of them have gone off the bench and started, and you just don't. They've both produced, I'd say, the same level. Maybe I'm wrong in saying this, by the way. Maybe you guys think there's one he's been outstanding from each side of it, if it's either the bench or the starting position. But if I had to say the one area, I think it's probably that. But I mean, what do you think? Was there a player that caught your eye in terms of, I guess it's a bad way of saying this, but was there a player that caught your eye that just didn't have the performance kind of what you expect?
Well, I should mention, disclaimer, I was sleep deprived at the time that the match took place, so maybe I didn't see this guy as much as I thought that we should have.
Okay.
But to be honest, I mean, this is going to be rough, but I think Damien Dialindi didn't do as much as I would have liked to see. I'm thinking back to pretty much 90% of the tries, and he wasn't involved in any of them. I think Jesse Creel, the cutout pass over the top. Willie LaRue was playing that inside centre role a little bit more with his cutout passes to Cannon Booty. It's a great combination, but honestly, I think Damien Dialindi probably the one player in the back line that I thought, is he there at some stages? And it makes me wonder whether or not next week will they give Andre Esterhuizen a chance at 12 and go with Jesse Creel as 13?
No.
We've got to remember this game up against the All Blacks.
No.
Do they want to risk Dialindi? because at the end of the day, we almost saw Cheslin and Colby get injured within 5 minutes of this match. They do not want to lose players to the ABs. Andre Pollard, is he going to be back? That's still the question that everyone's trying to answer. It seems like he's going.
I was going to get into this, by the way. Like, I saw Lukani on him on the sidelines, and I was like, is there something which I don't know about here? Is there something, something about that happened? That big news could pop up. Again, Lukani is injured, like, right? He's not available for the Rugby World Cup. But
he's traveling with them.
Yeah, he's giving me like false hope here. It's like, oh my gosh, he's actually at the game. I'm like, maybe he's just he's just maybe a fan, or maybe it's something else we don't know about. But again, I think, but for 100 Pollard, there could be something there, and that's in my opinion, out of the two, I'd pick Pollard to be the player that come up, to be put into the team, because the great thing about the box is that we actually have cover in that center position. In the fly-off, we're literally, it's Libok and I guess you can say Williamson, but Williamson really hasn't played the 10 position a lot. So we do need another fly-off there. And my gosh, 100 Pollard is one of the best probably in the world. So, like, if he's available, then, it's going to be big. When do you think, if there's a timeline, because again, to what I saw from the comments, I'm not sure if it was our live stream or maybe it was this podcast, I'm not sure. There was a comment I saw, a lot of comments saying that for every World Cup squad, it has to be announced before September the 1st. For what I saw, like for every World Cup squad, in terms of if they want to make a last-minute change to a squad. Are you thinking like it will happen like that day, or do you think it'll happen like a week before? Like, what will happen here? Like, do they announce it the day after the New Zealand South Africa game? Like, what do you think happens on that front?
I think the Springboks, they're normally very quick to put out certain things. It's like their lineups for each week. They're always about 2 days ahead of everyone else. So it wouldn't surprise me if maybe a day or two after the All Blacks versus Springboks game, we do hear exactly who's coming in, who's going out. But yeah, the question mark at the moment for them is, can they afford to drop a player for the sake of bringing Pollard back in? And people think that it could be a halfback that they look at getting rid of. I'm wondering whether or not, this sounds, once again, sleep deprivation, don't shoot me, but Kwaka Smith, Jesper Wiese. Do you need both of them, or are they both playing a very similar role in the side? Like, I'm wondering whether Dwayne Vermeulen is the starting number 8, and then you have Kwaka Smith off the bench. Then they'll probably still keep Jesper Wiese in, which is where the halfback side of things comes in. But if they, for some reason, go, we need all 4 of these guys, we don't want to drop one, we like having 4 of them.
It's weird.
Do you look at one of those guys? Does Dion Forey miss out? And then you work on the theory that if there's an injury to a hooker, you straight replace them with Joseph Dweba, who likes to throw at a 45-degree angle, just in case.
Yeah, I wouldn't choose Joseph Dweba. Like, if there's any substitution, if there's any change I wouldn't make, don't put Joseph Dweba. He's probably the one where I'm happy with Dylan Foy. We've mentioned this before in our previous episode, by the way, guys. So check that one out, of course, to see more what we said on that. But yeah, Dylan Foy has to be in there. But I guess, it'll be interesting to see what happens in terms of Pollard. We'll obviously wait to see on that front. But I think other than that, we'll then move on to the second game that happened literally today, really, which is Ireland versus England. Ireland, a good result, I'd say, overall from them. But to what I hear, England just did not step it up. And a lot of people are just saying, are just kind of, it's not surprising because it's England, but are kind of just going at it at the coach and Steve Borwick and saying, what are you doing? This is outrageous. Wales and now Ireland losing. So it's interesting because I just don't know what to think about it. Because again, this is maybe where I can be a bit biased in the sense where from a Southern Hemisphere standpoint, I'm like, oh wow, this is great for Argentina because they can obviously it's a good chance for them to see what happens there. But at the same time, in the back of I always like England kind of being a force to be reckoned with. I feel like without them being the force, it just feels a bit wrong because they brought the energy into the 2019 Rugby World Cup and a lot of people got behind them. So I'm just wondering if they can do this within the Rugby World Cup or not. But but look, Ireland were very impressive. I mean, what's he thinking about them? Because again, I know to what you said beforehand, all the tries are from wingers. So it seemed that they did pretty well in terms of finding the space out wide. But what did you think?
I think that for Ireland, they still seem like they weren't quite where they have been. I think that might just be a lack of game time because there were a lot of those set plays that were finding the turf rather than finding the hands. But overall, defensively, like they are a very solid side. And ruck speed, I saw a stat that said something about less than 3 seconds, 71% of the breakdown, compared to England, who had about maybe 30 or 40% for that same factor.
Wow, that's better.
So the quickness of that ball getting out is going to put a lot of teams under a huge amount of pressure. I'll be honest, the first half was pretty rough from both teams. Like we had so many scrums, I couldn't even count them on two hands. How many scrums?
Can you let me know who was a scrum half for England? Because I forgot who. Because I know with Jack Van
We went with Ben Youngs.
Ben Youngs. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, with so many scrums and scrum resets and everything along those lines, the game just didn't quite hit its flow throughout that first 40 minutes. Billy Vonapola, I asked the question, did the man really want to go to the World Cup? Because he seemed like he didn't want to when he decided to shoulder charge a man in the head. Although, depending on who his system is, maybe you can do the same as Fazdog.
Maybe he's learning from
just a
well.
warning. Just be back next week, ready to go. But
they're at the detention now.
It's such a weird time in rugby because there's so many players getting injured, which of course is no fault of their own.
Yeah.
But there's so many players doing stupid things when it comes to not wrapping their arms, taking players' heads off, and then going, oh yeah, the World Cup's almost here. I have to miss the first couple games. It's making it very hard for coaches to be like, we want to put you in because, for one, you're not going to be there for the first 1 or 2 games. And then after that, who knows whether or not you're going to clothesline someone there. I think that's why, strategically, Argentina don't have games at the moment because they know they'd lose Crema, they know they'd lose Lavanini, and they'll lose a few other players as well. But that is why they're having that little bit of a break here. Are you allowed to take less than 33 men to France because you don't have enough players?
I can see that.
Yeah, it seems like just ill discipline, a lot of penalties against sides, and it is hurting them. And it's going to be the case of whoever gives away probably the least penalties in these Rugby World Cup group stage games that's actually going to find the success, just hanging on to that ball. It sounds too simple, but it is that simple. Just get your hands on the ball more than your opposition. You're going to have a chance to score more points than them. Stop clotheslining them.
It's very true. The things that when I think back to all this, like where there were so many rule changes, like just following the past World Cup that happened, like in the space of the 4 years we've had now, there's been so many rule changes in terms of making sure the tackle, that everyone's being safe and all of this, but it just seems that it's got worse like throughout each year, which is like I just can't believe that. And again, we never want this, by the way, guys, because again, we obviously know rugby is a physical sport at the end of the day, but you never want to go to the level like where it's going to get to a sense where I hate to say it, it's like American football, like where you have to wear helmets, and I don't like that. That's what makes rugby a bit special in that sense, where you just bang guys, and it's just brilliant.
You do what?
You know what? We're gonna cut that.
No, we gotta keep it in, Tim. It's gotta stay in there.
I'm just letting this go. I'm not even gonna edit this out. But no, it's one of those where I just don't know what to think about it really, just because there's just so many rules that have gone in place for everything. But it's just gonna be very fascinating to see if like within the Rugby World Cup, if there's a lot of like cards, if there's a lot of do you think there'll be a lot of like what we've seen really from this kind of warm-ups really so far? Do you think there'll be a lot more of these cases in terms of like, high shots and really of these like, big decisions that are made? Like, do you think we'll see that within this Rugby World Cup? Or do you think they'll put it down because it's a competition? Like, what do you think on that front?
I think the bigger problem they've got now is they've introduced a new rule of a yellow card review. And the first case of it happening to Owen Farrell, they've then afterwards gone, that was the wrong decision. So straight away, your system's flawed. Because if you can't get the first one right, what says you're going to get the next 10 right, We saw Billy Vonapola, his was upgraded to a red card from the yellow, and the point of it is to try and speed the game along. But if you're not going to make the calls correct at times, Because we saw one in the Fiji versus France game, which we will talk about relatively soon. Now, a player swinging arm to the head.
Exactly.
No check whatsoever. Not even a TMO just to go, was that a little high? And then that player went on to score a try for France, which really would have hurt the Fijians. But they need to make sure it's the same message over and over, but consistency. You need to make sure that all of the referees, as hard as it is, they have to rule things the same so that people get the knowledge of, okay, this is what's going to be penalised for what. Because we've seen so much in the last few weeks. One player will end up with a yellow card, a red card for the same challenge. Some will have banned for a few weeks. Other players get off scot-free. So it needs to be consistent before that World Cup, or else then that is something that will put people off, is the fact that they just don't know how situations are going to be policed.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the last thing you want going into a big competition, is people going, oh, it's corrupt, it's got problems.
I agree.
You want it to run smoothly.
I agree with this. And there's actually a lot more I want to touch on this, but it links probably to our final topic that we'll probably discuss. So yeah, we'll move on then, of course, towards the France versus Fiji game. France, at the end of the day, got a pretty impressive result. I'm not going to say they wiped the floor actually with Fiji, because at the end, Fiji did pretty well actually in some parts of the game for what it was. But again, just France were too strong. When it comes towards depth, they definitely have the advantage over the Fijians. But what do you think about that? Do you think it was just one of those games where France were just the stronger team at the end of the day, or do you think it was a bit different because France didn't have like their first team squad for what it is, and they made it a bit more interesting? Like, what do you think?
I think that Fiji, even though they lost by 17 points, they still proved quite a bit in the game up against France, because we've got to remember, like, they were playing in France. The crowd were pretty much completely against them in that contest. But other than those early, like, France were up by 9 in the first maybe 8 minutes or so, just with repeated penalties. And to be fair, I hate to say it, but I think that at times the refereeing wasn't quite what they would have liked. Unfortunately, the touch judge was actually refereeing more than the main judge. He had to tell him about 4 knock-ons. Yeah. He had to tell him about the high shot because the referee missed it. And that may have maybe played factor into why it wasn't given as a red card for Yui Antonio, because I feel like if they did check it, it would have at least been a yellow with the review system in play again.
Would you go to red, or do you think it would just stay the same?
I honestly think it would have been upgraded to a red, because there was no real mitigation, swing an arm round to the chin. I said about it on my live stream as well, and this is another concerning part. The reason that they didn't look at it more was because the Fijian player Vinaya Bossi got back up to his feet and acted like nothing happened. And that, for me, says a little bit of a problem, because if he had stayed down and held his face, they would have looked at it on the replay. Because he got up and got on with the game, they didn't. And
I
that's concerning, because I know that we saw it for Australia versus France in that series a few years ago when Geelong was holding his face when Marika Korombedi hit him. And that was actually when that 20-minute red card rule came into play.
Yeah, that was...
But if there's going to be the case of, serious big shots coming in that aren't getting TMO, that aren't even getting a replay on the big screen, you've got to make sure you're consistent. Once again, it's that word consistency across the whole board, whether it's a team playing that's tier 1 or tier 2. If you've got the ability to go upstairs, you should be checking it, because, it's some big decisions, and I hope that they do it throughout the World Cup, that they will be looking at things. Of course, you don't want it to take as long as that South Africa versus Wales one, where they watched Cannon Moody for about 15 minutes. Very long time. But, overall, Fiji, I felt like they didn't do too badly. They had their moments in that game. Seemed like they're still trying to get a few selections correct. France were clinical when they got that opportunity. Jonathan Dante had an absolutely brilliant performance. 3 turnovers in the breakdown for a number 12.
That's impressive.
That's what D'Alende should have been. No, I'm joking. But, he did very nicely.
Stole his limelight. That's the reason why. I'm going off that. That's the reason why. But
yeah. But France, their problem may be that number 10, just in terms of who they're going to go with.
Exactly,
Jamani, I felt,
that's the
didn't go too badly at number 15. Mofana out on the wing was good, as well as Pieto Malvaka. They had a few players who stepped up well. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they go next week up against Australia, because last time we probably saw those two sides playing was a wee while ago. And
Yeah.
they seem to have that rivalry, how they can have close games even when they
Yeah.
don't look like they're even.
Yeah, because like the last time they played, actually, because for some reason I was thinking, oh, it's actually when they played in Australia, but actually they did actually play one in
They
France.
have
That was
one
when
in the November
yeah,
internationals,
it's like
didn't
when
they?
Tom Wright, I think, was it Tom Wright? No, it was oh, who was it? It was Folchetti, I think it was, who had that good try. It was one of the tries of the year, I think it was, but it was when they ran down the whole wing. But yeah, no, I mean, like again, like whenever they two, it's actually a really exciting game actually when those two play into each other. So I'm actually looking forward towards that one. But again, we'll finish it off with that, I guess, in terms of that game. But we'll get on to, I guess, like the the big topic you could say of the week, which was obviously Owen Farrell's, kind of red card decision and what's happened, following it. Again, we're not going to go really into what's, I guess, like what happened straight after in terms of, just the red card decision itself. We're going to give you guys more of an updated version, just give you guys what we think about really World Rugby appealing against the decision, not to, kind of just go against what was the original decision, because it just shows that, when the Rugby world kind of spoke out, and, a lot of players spoke out in terms of international captains as well. They're like, look at this. This is like, how has this been given, 10 game ban, and then you're giving this guy nothing, or like, so there's a lot we're going to go into right now. But like, what do you think about like just for World Rugby to appeal? Does this kind of just show that like the decision that a lot of these decisions are just so like, are they just incorrect most of the time, or do you think this was just such a one-off instance that everyone knew the decision and they got it wrong the first time, and World Rugby had to step in and be like, guys, come on, this is a pretty awful decision. Let's make the right call here and just ban him for this amount of time. Like, well, what do you think? Like, what was going on in the heads of, I guess, everyone, really?
Well, the thing is, at this point, they haven't said that he's got a ban yet.
Exactly.
So we, of course, have to wait to see what World Rugby do come up with in the end. We've seen players get 3-week bans, whether that's Peter Labaskakni for the Japanese for a challenge that was relatively similar.
Yeah.
And, it's once again, I'm going to say that word, consistency. You got to make sure that it's consistent all across the board. The reason that so many people have been annoyed at this isn't so much with the fact that it's Owen Farrell. I know that some people, that is fueling their fire a little bit because they know that he's done it in the past to other opposition. But they've got to make sure that, every decision is refereed in the same manner, or it's dealt with in the same manner, rather than like the fact that it got upgraded to that red, like I mentioned, and then now they're like, nah, that system was wonky. We don't need to do that for all of them. And then we see Billy Vonapola do it for England this time in the game. It's just, have they left it too close to the World Cup to start bringing in some of these rules?
That's why
I feel like they needed more time to be able to adjust. Maybe have it throughout the Guinness Six Nations, have it throughout the Rugby Championship, and then you at least get that little bit more information about how it can be used. Because, at this stage, people are worried with this Rugby World Cup just around the corner. Is it going to be a bad decision that's made, and then afterwards they go, nah, it was wrong, sorry about that, but it could knock a team out of the World Cup? That's the last thing you want.
I'll be perfectly honest. I think we'll probably do we'll do an episode about this in terms of obviously the build up to the Rugby World Cup and everything. But I'll mention it now because I just think it's on the topic and kind of what I'm going to anyway address. I do think a big game, just say within the quarterfinals, is going to be decided by a red card. I can see it happening because it's just no one wants it. Of course, not even if it's your team. Of course, it's horrendous. If it's the team you're going against, you're like, oh, it's great, but at the end of the day, like you never want that because it just ruins the game because you're like, okay, what's the outcome, the likelier outcome now. You kind of ruin that kind of tension that's really built between those two sides going into it and just what's happened already. So I have a funny feeling something's going to happen within this Rugby World Cup, and particularly within the knockouts, a big call is going to be made. And again, we obviously don't know what game it will be, but I just have a funny feeling something's going to happen. It's going to really, I guess, like, it's going to be a big talking point, to say the least, similar to what we've seen with an Owen Farrell. And again, it's understandable why, I guess, the attention, really, this has been, I'm not saying blown up out of proportion. But the reason why it's got so much attention from the media is because it's Owen Farrell. He's he's literally he's still is the captain of England still? Is he?
I believe so. He was in a bit of a co-captaincy.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think
scenario,
but he's still part of the leadership group. He's a notable player. So I understand the reasons for it. But it's going to be very interesting to see obviously what happens in terms of the decision when it gets made, because I think it'll be very soon to what we'll see. But look, guys, we're gonna end there, of course, this episode. Again, just hope you guys obviously enjoyed watching this. We'll be giving you guys another one, I believe, for next week. We'll be covering, I guess, really just more of we'll do a preview as well as a review for that Bulk All Blacks game. I mean, is there another games, to my knowledge? What will be next week as well? There'll be a few more, I believe, of the eliminations.
We've got England versus Fiji, Ireland versus Samoa, Scotland versus Georgia, France versus Australia, Italy. Yeah, they are taking on Japan. Argentina are playing Spain. I don't go outside much, Tim. I shouldn't know that well.
I like this. Yeah, you're just listening. Yeah, I know all of this.
Yeah.
Hey, we're against the rugby mindset, guys. You have to understand that. But anyway, we're gonna leave it there. Also, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you guys next time.